Their world's gravity would break anyone, but the human stepped onto Lirae to rescue Sylvi. Siren lights pulsed through Celestial Outpost Theta, casting staccato flashes across the chaos gripping the operations deck. Alarms warbled, interwoven with the jagged voices of technicians scrambling between consoles. The armored observation windows shuddered with the aftershock of another gravitational tremor. Below, the planet Lirae twisted in the grasp of unseen forces, silver-blue planes contorting as if a giant hand pressed and crumpled their surface, research domes collapsing like paper under the weight. Whole cities buckled, their skyline silhouettes bending, folding, vanishing within waves of distortion. Inside, monitors flared with wild, impossible readings. Data streams stuttered. Gravity spikes, fluctuating mass, time dilation estimates that bordered on the surreal. At the center of it all was the Horizon Array hub, now marked in violent red on every screen. The source, the epicenter, the place where gravity surged to nearly 3 times Lirae's normal, already infamous for being triple Earths. Envoy Marcel stood rigid, lips white, voice trembling as he slammed his fist on the main console. "Damn it! My daughter's down there! She's with the research team!" Static hissed from the open comm channels, a background of despair. In his desperate glare, fear mingled with guilt, and every official and scientist around him fell silent. The Lyrian premier, impossibly tall, skin like refracted crystal, shook his head, features flickering in the pulsing light. "Our rescue walkers are useless," he intoned, his voice resonant and cool. "The disturbances are beyond precedent. No Lyrian structure has endured such strain." Security Chief Reddick, stocky and barrel-chested, barked into the heavy air. "Options. There has to be a way. Is there nothing that can punch through?" Dr. Mira Solon, mission lead, pressed her trembling fingers to her temples, her face drawn with exhaustion. "Nothing built can endure tenfold gravity. Even our dampeners would crumple. No pilot would survive long enough to reach the hub." Despair, heavy as Lirae's own pull, settled like a fog over the command deck. Engineers exchanged looks of helplessness, eyes flicking to red status lines and jagged gravity maps. Then, cutting through the tension, a single voice rose. "I'll go," Eli Grant said. The room snapped still. Heads turned. Eli stood at the edge of the crowd, grease-streaked jumpsuit and tousled hair setting him apart from the immaculate uniforms. He was known across a dozen exoplanet projects, a technician whose survival stories were whispered through the ranks. His voice was steady, but his jaw was set with stubborn fire. Dr. Solon's eyes widened. "Eli, it's a death sentence. Even with field dampeners, your body will fail. The bones, the organs, the..." He raised a hand, eyes unwavering. "I've worked Europa's pits. I've lived through the Ganymede core floods. I know my limits. If anyone's going to make it, it's someone who's got nothing left to lose but their word." The premier's crystalline gaze was unreadable, his voice a measured cadence of doubt and awe. "Lirae's gravity, even at rest, is nearly triple that of Earth. Now it surges almost tenfold. Are you certain your field stabilizer can handle such extremes?" Eli squared his shoulders. "I'll trust the prototype. It's untested, but it's our only hope. If I can keep the stabilizer from overloading, I might have a shot. We don't have time for anything else." Silence hung, heavy as the gravity outside. Reddick looked from Eli to Marcel, his jaw tight. "He's our best chance," he muttered. "Maybe our only." Envoy Marcel stepped forward, voice low and roughened by fear. "Sylvi is brilliant and stubborn, too stubborn. She'll try to save her research even if it kills her." His eyes locked with Eli's. "Get her back, please." Eli gave a slow, grave nod. "I'll do my best. That's all I can promise." The deck burst into motion. Engineers, galvanized by hope or desperation, rushed to prep the descent capsule. A dozen voices barked orders, checked stabilizer calibrations, and loaded emergency kits. The hangar became a hive of activity, the capsule at its center like a single die cast against impossible odds. Dr. Solon intercepted Eli as he climbed into the suit's rigid exoskeleton, her hands trembling as she fitted the neural relay to the base of his skull. She paused, her palm lingering on his arm, her eyes searching his face for something more than bravado. "Why do you always volunteer?" she asked, her voice quiet, almost lost beneath the drone of machines. He offered a crooked smile. "Maybe I like the challenge." But his eyes, softening, said more. Memories and regrets flickering beneath the mask. She squeezed his arm, unwilling to let go. "Come back. You still owe me a drink on the rings." He managed a laugh, rough and fleeting. "Then I guess I have to." The premier approached, offering a Liraean gesture of respect. Crystalline fingers cool and strong as they touched Eli's brow. "Whatever happens, you will be remembered. In our histories. In our hearts." Eli nodded, the weight of those words heavier than the planet below. He settled into the capsule, the hatch sealing with a hiss. Dr. Solon appeared on the comm, her face pale on the screen. "Stabilizer at 97%, she reported, voice taut. "The window is closing fast." He met her gaze, holding it. No time to wait. As the launch sequence engaged, Eli's thoughts flashed to Sylvi. Silver skin, luminous white hair, the determined face from her file. A living reminder of what was at stake. The capsule lurched, then roared from the hangar, plunging toward the writhing world below. Heat and pressure closed in, the horizon spinning, as Eli braced himself for the impossible descent. Eli's pod slammed into the surface of Lirae with a bone-rattling impact, metal shrieking as the capsule tumbled end over end. When it finally came to a halt, battered but mercifully intact, red emergency lights strobed across the cramped interior. Eli's vision blurred, the world pressing in on him with a crushing, merciless weight. The stabilizer thrummed at his back, fighting a losing battle against the planet's writhing gravity. He could feel every heartbeat echoed in the iron band squeezing his chest. He gritted his teeth and forced his hands to move. Every motion sent daggers of pain lancing through his muscles. He fumbled with the release lever, every joint screaming in protest, then shoved against the hatch. It groaned open only a hand's width, gravity's cruel hand trying to pin him inside forever. With a guttural growl, Eli braced his legs and pushed, the reinforced exosuit amplifying his trembling effort. The hatch finally yielded, slamming outward, and a wave of dazzling, fractured daylight swept over him. The neural relay crackled in his ear, Dr. Solon's voice distant, but steady. "Stabilizer at 58%. You need to move, Eli. The field's losing coherence." "Understood," he rasped, dragging himself through the opening. His boots hit the ground with the force of lead anchors. Each step was agony. Lirae's gravity, surging and unpredictable, bore down on him like a living thing. He staggered forward, shoulders hunched, the exosuit's servos groaning under the strain. The landscape was a nightmare of physics gone rogue. The ground was shattered, stone and soil folded into grotesque waves. Towers that once soared now leaned at impossible angles, half swallowed by the earth, their transparent domes webbed with cracks. A research vehicle lay on its side, wheels still spinning. Eli's breaths came ragged, sweat stinging his eyes. But with every heartbeat he felt something else, a strange adaptation, an old remnant from his asteroid mining days. The genetic tweaks made for low-G survival now strained and shifted, his cells struggling to meet this new, monstrous demand. Joints thickened, muscle fibers burned, then tightened. In his ear, Dr. Solon sounded both fascinated and alarmed. Your cellular structure is shifting. Adaptive proteins are spiking. This shouldn't be possible, Eli. No baseline human. I'm not baseline, he grunted, clambering over a collapsed girder. And I'm not dead yet. He pushed onward, through the tangled wreckage. Every movement was a negotiation with pain, but he focused on the task. The reason he'd come. Marcel's daughter. The others. The hope that flickered, however faint, kept him upright. Suddenly, a wave of pressure, hot and immense, rolled through the ground. Gravity spiked, yanking him downward. He was slammed to his knees, the world spinning. The stabilizer flared warning lights. He tried to rise, but the pressure doubled. With a desperate gasp, he dropped to his belly, crawling under the shattered remains of a support beam. Dust billowed in his face. He pressed himself flat, gritting his teeth, waiting for the spike to pass. When the weight eased, he forced himself up, dazed. He scanned the horizon, watching the distortion ripple outward. It was mesmerizing, almost beautiful, in a way that made his skin crawl. Then realization struck. A rhythm, not pure chaos. Gravity waves, not random, but deliberate. Someone's orchestrating this, he muttered half to himself. Marcel's voice buzzed in, tight and raw with fear. Just find my daughter, Grant, please. Working on it. Eli adjusted the suit's scanner, its readings stuttering, then stabilizing. He limped toward what was left of a transit corridor, following the emergency beacon's faint pulse. The emergency hatch loomed ahead, partially buried beneath a mound of debris. No ordinary human could have budged it, but Eli's exosuit and altered physiology gave him leverage. He jammed his shoulder under a warped support, grunted, and heaved. Muscles screamed, bones creaked, but the hatch inched upward. He slid through the gap, tumbling into shadow. Inside, the air was thick, humming with energy. Flickering lights cast surreal shadows across the warped corridor walls. Once smooth and clean, now bowed and buckled as if shaped by a giant's hand. Eli's boots clanged on the slanted floor as he checked his scanner. Faint bio signs, clustered below. He pressed forward, squeezing through twisted doors and ducking under drooping conduits. The hum of the stabilizer grew louder in his ears. He followed the signal to a collapsed laboratory, the ceiling drooping dangerously low. Huddled among the rubble were 3 figures, 2 upright, 1 slumped with a bloodied shoulder. Eli's voice was gravel. Eli Grant, rescue detail, I'm here to get you out. The woman who turned toward him had skin like molten silver, luminous white hair tangled around her face. Sylvi. Her silver eyes widened in disbelief, darting from his face to the battered exosuit, then down to his trembling hands. No human could stand here, she breathed, incredulous. Gravity would have crushed you. He managed a wry grin. Guess I'm not just any human. The other survivor, a Lirae technician, shifted to shield their injured colleague. Eli knelt beside them, fingers flying over the medical kit. Hold still, he said, voice gentler now. He ran a scan. Shoulder fracture, but your organs are holding. Lucky break. He injected a coagulant and splinted the wound with practiced efficiency. Sylvi watched, her curiosity plain even through her exhaustion. She drew closer, her gaze intent on his face, on the way his veins bulged and his features seemed subtly changed. You're adapting, she murmured, almost in awe. Your bone density, muscle fiber. How is this possible? Eli shrugged, feeling the heat of her nearness. Old mining mods. My genes are playing catch-up, just trying to stay alive. He glanced at her, the silver glint in her eyes drawing him in. Looks like you're holding up pretty well yourself. She offered a half smile, a spark of pride in her tone. Lirae's evolved for this. But you shouldn't even be conscious. A deep rumble rolled through the floor. The world lurched, gravity shifting again. Instinctively, Sylvie grabbed Eli's arm, her slender fingers cool and strong. The two of them braced together as debris shuddered overhead. In that moment, pressed close, the divide between them, human and Liraean, rescuer and rescued, seemed to dissolve. Sylvie studied him, her breath catching. "You're changing," she whispered, wonder and something softer in her tone. He met her gaze, steady and warm despite the tremors rattling the world around them. "So are you," he said, the words carrying more meaning than the chaos allowed them to share. Their eyes locked, a silent current running between them. Scientific fascination giving way to a connection deeper, more fragile, forged in adversity. The fragile intimacy shattered as alarms blared through the corridor. Harsh, discordant tones echoed down the warped halls. Sylvie's face hardened. She glanced toward the trembling bulkhead, tension twisting her features. "They're coming," she said, urgency lacing her voice. "Hostile Lyrian separatists. They want my research, my data on the Horizon Array. This isn't a natural disaster, Eli. It's sabotage. They engineered the gravity cascade." Eli's jaw clenched. "How long do we have?" "Minutes. Maybe less." Sylvie turned to the damaged terminal, her hands flying across the flickering controls. "Help me. I need to retrieve my data before they arrive. If they get it..." He was already moving, bracing the console as Sylvie slid in beside him. Together, they coaxed the battered system to life, frantic as the facility shuddered around them. The sirens grew louder, the air thick with threat. Eli glanced at her, silver hair gleaming in the emergency lights, determination hardening her features. "We'll get it, and we'll get you all out." She met his gaze, gratitude and fear mingling in her silver eyes. For an instant the chaos receded, and all that mattered was the promise between them. Then the floor rocked again, and Eli reached to steady her as the data download began, the countdown ticking ever lower as the shadow of their enemies closed in. They plunged into the service shafts, the narrow tunnels winding like arteries through the battered underbelly of the Horizon Array. Eli led the way, ducking under severed cables and shattered conduit, the world above them groaning and flexing as gravity surged in unpredictable, violent waves. Emergency lamps flickered, painting Sylvie's silver skin in ghostly reds and pale blues as she followed close behind, her breath quick and shallow in the close darkness. Behind them, distant voices echoed, shouts in clipped Liraean, punctuated by the heavy thud of boots. The separatists were closing in. Each footstep was a gamble. Sometimes the floor seemed to melt and reform beneath them, the wild gravity tugging at their bones, threatening to pin them or send them tumbling. Sylvie stumbled as the ground tilted sharply, her hand grasping for the slick metal of the wall. Eli was there, steadying her with a strong arm. Her skin was cool against his, almost electric where they touched. She looked up at him, breathless. "You're stronger than you look," she said, her voice tinged with equal parts curiosity and admiration. Eli managed a lopsided grin, even as sweat dripped down his brow. "Old genetic mods," he admitted. "Asteroid mining. They made me tougher, but not for this." He flexed his fingers, feeling the strange strength surging through him, equal parts fear and exhilaration. They pressed on. The corridor twisted, ceiling pressing low. Another gravity pulse rippled through the structure, making steel scream and glass shudder. This time, Sylvie lost her footing altogether and fell against Eli. He caught her, arms tightening instinctively, their faces inches apart. Before either could speak, the unstable field lurched again, and in that impossible weightless heartbeat Sylvie's lips found his. The kiss was brief and urgent, a spark between panic and hope, a collision of need and discovery. It was over almost before it began, leaving them both wide-eyed. Sylvie drew back, cheeks shimmering with a faint blush. Liraean pheromones, she murmured, her voice low and teasing. They might help you adapt. Eli's heart pounded, the world narrowing to the space between them. If it helps, I'll take all you've got, he said, only half joking. But already the moment was slipping away. The heavy clang of boots echoed closer, shouts growing louder. They pressed deeper into the shaft, ducking through a hatch and into an abandoned maintenance corridor. Here, the chaos seemed to fade. No alarms, no gunfire, just the strained hum of machinery fighting to keep the world from tearing itself apart. As they caught their breath, Eli's attention snagged on a strange glimmer in the wall, something embedded, not of Liraean design. Sylvie stepped closer, her fingers brushing the smooth, seamless surface. That's not ours, she whispered, tracing the geometric patterns etched into the metal. This is alien, not Liraean, not human. Eli frowned, scanning the device. You think this is what's causing the gravity surges? Sylvie's eyes widened with realization. No, it's amplifying them. This is the real source. The separatists must have smuggled it in. They're not just sabotaging us, Eli. They're trying to fracture our alliances. If the Council believes humans did this... Her words trailed off, the implications chilling. The device pulsed with a quiet, alien rhythm, a malignant heart deep within the complex. The next gravity spike was mercifully mild. Eli pulled Sylvie into a recessed alcove, a pocket of relative stability amid the chaos. For a moment they were hidden, shielded from the chase and the danger. Sylvie leaned back against the cool wall, her features shadowed and thoughtful. My research. It was never just about the array. It's about adaptation, cross-species survival, helping Liraeans and humans thrive on each other's worlds. If we lose this data, we lose our future together. Eli sat beside her, knees drawn up, his breath still ragged. Maybe your gravity fields did more than test me. Maybe they woke something up. Something my mods couldn't do alone. He reached out, his hand finding hers in the dimness. She looked at him, wonder flickering in her eyes. We should test that, she whispered, her voice trembling between nerves and excitement. This time, when their lips met, the kiss was slow and searching, a blend of curiosity and trust. Eli felt the heat of her skin, the subtle shift of pheromones, something within him resonating and reshaping, as if the planet's gravity were not the only force rewriting him. For a moment, the world's violence faded, and all that existed was this strange, fragile connection, a promise of something more. The spell broke as explosions rocked the complex, the ground shuddering beneath them. Sirens wailed anew, and Dr. Solin's voice crackled over the neural relay, urgent and strained. Eli, hostiles are closing in. I'm reading gravity amplifiers moving toward your sector. You need to move. Now. Sylvie pulled away, resolve sharpening her features. We can't let them destroy the research. There's a prototype in my backup lab. Far side of the lower ring. It's the only place the amplifiers haven't reached. If we can activate it, we can disrupt the alien device and stabilize the field, maybe even reverse the cascade. Eli tightened the straps on his exosuit, determination settling over him like armor. Lead the way. We get your prototype, we stop the sabotage, and we give everyone a future. They exchanged a final, steady glance. The stakes had shifted. Their mission was no longer just survival. It was hope. Fighting for the possibility of a world where human and Liraean, difference and adaptation, could become something new. Eli checked his stabilizer, feeling the pulse of Sylvie's hand in his, and together they darted back into the chaos, ready to face whatever waited for them beyond the trembling walls. They moved through the broken skin of Lirae, every step a negotiation with the planet's wrath. The ground was fractured and unstable, ridges buckling like scar tissue across the once smooth plains. Gravity waves shimmered in the air, rippling distortions that warped the view, bending light and making every horizon uncertain. Eli felt each pulse through his bones, a relentless drumbeat threatening to crush him if he faltered. He kept his arm tight around the wounded scientist, a Liraean with iridescent skin dulled by pain. The man's breaths came shallow, but he managed to limp forward, leaning on Eli as if he were an anchor. Ahead, Sylvi and another survivor, a young Liraean woman with cropped hair, scouted the terrain, picking paths through the ruins that wouldn't collapse beneath them. Sylvi's silver-white hair whipped in the heated wind, her eyes scanning the horizon for threats both natural and man-made. "Careful," she called back, her voice carrying over the groaning earth. "That ridge is unstable. Follow my steps exactly." Eli nodded, guiding the injured man forward. The scientist's weight was nothing compared to the gravity's pull, but Eli found himself moving with unexpected ease. His muscles felt denser, more responsive, every adjustment a reminder of the changes happening inside him. He glanced at Sylvi as she paused to check a handheld gravimeter, her profile limned by the eerie light. "How did your people survive this?" he asked, voice tight with effort. "Most worlds would have torn themselves apart." Sylvi slowed, glancing back at him. "Lirae was once like your Earth. Blue skies, gentle tides. Then the core shifted, the gravity increased. Our cities fell, oceans withdrew. Those who survived adapted, generation by generation. Our bones thickened, our blood grew dense. We learned to move under new rules." She looked at him, her gaze thoughtful. "But your changes? They're happening in hours, not centuries." Eli managed to smile, shifting his grip on the wounded man. "Guess I'm a quick study. Maybe Lirae's just a good teacher." Sylvi's lips twitched, and for a moment her eyes lost their worry. "What's Earth like?" she asked. "To move so freely, what does it feel like?" Eli thought back to his childhood, to the sensation of running through a rain-soaked field, of diving into a cool lake, the sun warming his back. It's light. You take a step, and the world seems to lift you, not hold you down. You can run for the joy of running, swim for the pleasure of feeling weightless. Sometimes, if you jump, you almost believe you'll fly. Sylvi listened, her gaze soft, questions tumbling from her lips like falling stars. "And is that why you kissed me?" she teased, her tone half curious, half hopeful. Eli grinned, feeling heat rise to his cheeks. "Could be. Maybe I wanted to know if you felt as light as you looked." Sylvi's cheeks flashed a silvery blush, but her eyes sparkled. She reached out as if to say more, but a deep tremor rolled through the ground, knocking them off balance. The sky flickered with streaks of white as gravity twisted the clouds. Eli instinctively lunged, throwing his body over Sylvi as debris rained down. The air grew thick, oppressive, then the pressure ebbed, leaving the world oddly hushed. Sylvi looked up at him, her face inches from his. "You keep saving me," she whispered. He shrugged, breathless. "Force of habit." The moment shattered as a shout rang out, sharp and commanding. Out of the dust, separatist soldiers emerged, armored in suits engineered for Lirae's crushing gravity. Their leader, taller and broader than the rest, leveled a plasma rifle at Sylvi, his voice booming. "Hand over the research drive, Dr. Sylvi, now." The soldiers fanned out, boots sinking into the fractured earth, weapons aimed with deadly precision. Eli eased the wounded man behind a chunk of fallen masonry, his mind racing. Sylvi stood tall, holding the research drive close to her chest. "We can't let them have it," she whispered. Eli scanned the chaos. Every escape route was a dead end or a drop into churning fissures. Then he spotted it, a yawning chasm splitting the ground, impossible to cross by foot. The only bridge was a narrow outcropping, already crumbling. Sylvie's hand darted to her belt, fingers closing around a small device, a gravity modulator. She met Eli's gaze, her eyes fierce. "Buy me a minute." He nodded, stepping forward, drawing the soldier's attention with a defiant stance. "You want her research?" he called out, forcing bravado into his voice. "Come and take it." The leader sneered, signaling his troops forward. But Sylvie was already at work, the modulator humming in her palm. She tossed it onto the chasm's edge. It floated, emitting a low, harmonic pulse. Instantly, gravity warped. The air shimmered, and a bridge of blue-white energy arced across the abyss, wavering but solid. "Go!" Sylvie shouted to the others, guiding the wounded and the young Liraean woman onto the bridge. The separatists fired, plasma bolts slicing the air. Eli darted left, then right, moving with a speed and strength that startled even him. He dodged a blast, ducked behind a collapsed pillar, and hurled a chunk of debris at the nearest soldier. The man went down, armor dented. Sylvie was already halfway across with the survivors, but the bridge flickered, threatened by the strain. The last of the group stumbled to the far side. Eli sprinted for the bridge, heart pounding. The leader aimed, firing directly at the gravity modulator. The beam struck true. The field shuddered. The bridge began to collapse, segments evaporating into thin air. Sylvie reached out from the other side, eyes wide with terror. "Eli, jump!" He ran, feet pounding on the flickering energy. The bridge vanished beneath his last step. Eli leapt, flying for a heartbeat, arms outstretched. Sylvie caught his hand, her grip iron strong. She hauled him upward with a desperate, guttural cry. For a suspended moment, they hung above the chasm, then tumbled together onto solid ground as the bridge disintegrated behind them. They collapsed in a heap, dust swirling around them. Eli felt Sylvie's heartbeat racing through her cool skin as she lay with her head on his chest, breathless with relief and adrenaline. "No humans ever crossed a gravity bridge," she marveled, wonder softening her voice. Eli laughed, the sound surprised and bright, his body thrumming with newfound energy. "Guess I'm not just any human anymore." They stayed that way for a long moment, the world's chaos held at bay by the warmth between them. Sylvie's fingers traced the lines of his jaw, her eyes searching his, filled with awe and something deeper. Around them, the ruined land groaned and shifted, but for now, the only thing that mattered was the connection forged in survival, trust, and the wild hope that, together, they might change the fate of two worlds. They reached the backup laboratory just as dawn clawed its way over the ruined horizon. The facility's silvered bulk was built to withstand the worst of Lirae's gravity storms. Fortified walls, magnetic barricades, and armored viewports. But already, it was under the Separatists' control. Above the entrance, drones hovered in silent formation, their sensors sweeping the rubble. Soldiers in grav-armored suits stalked the perimeter, weapons gleaming under the sickly morning light. Most ominous of all were the gravity amplifiers spaced around the building, metallic spires throbbing with unnatural energy, pulsing faster with each surge from the tortured ground. Eli crouched beside Sylvie behind the twisted shell of a fallen vehicle, studying the scene. The amplifier's hum resonated in his bones, making his skin crawl. Each pulse sent ripples through the air, distorting the light, threatening to tear the world apart. "If those resonate," Sylvie whispered, her voice barely audible, "we'll get a black hole. Everything. This lab, the array, all of Lirae, gone in a breath." He glanced at her, eyes dark with worry. "And the Separatists think they can control it?" She shook her head, lips pressed thin. Their leader believes he's found a way to harness the energy. He's wrong. None of us are ready for this. We have to stop them. Now. Eli's gaze swept the lab's exterior. Most doors were sealed and watched, but on the far side he spotted a narrow maintenance shaft, half buried in debris. The hatch was small, maybe meant for repair drones or emergency access. Far too tight for the broad-shouldered Liraeans, but just possible for someone of his frame, especially as his body continued to adapt to Lirae's punishing gravity. He looked at Sylvi, determination sparking between them. I can fit through there. Get inside, open the lab from the control room. Anxiety flickered across Sylvie's features. She took his hand, squeezing it tight. Be careful. If you get caught, he started to reply, but Sylvie leaned in, pressing her lips to his in a kiss that held no pretense, only hope and urgency. When she drew back, her voice trembled. For luck, and because I want to. He smiled, his thumb brushing her cheek. I'll bring us home. He slipped from cover and crawled toward the maintenance hatch, keeping low as drones swept overhead. The gravity intensified near the shaft, pulling at his limbs, turning each movement into a battle. He gritted his teeth and forced himself forward, bones creaking, muscles knotting beneath his skin. The world narrowed to the circle of light ahead as he squeezed through the hatch, the metal scraping his shoulders. Every pulse of the amplifiers made his heart race, but his body, reshaped by gene mods and Lirae's fury, kept adapting, his strength deepening, muscles and bones hardening with each breath. He emerged in a cramped service corridor, the control room just beyond. He could hear the separatists' voices, the harsh bark of their lieutenant giving orders to lock down the lab and prepare the amplifiers for resonance. Eli steeled himself and slipped through a side door. Inside, the control room was a chaos of flashing lights and warning klaxons. The enemy lieutenant, a hulking Liraean in reinforced armor, stood at the console, manipulating the controls. When he saw Eli, his eyes narrowed, disbelief flickering across his crystalline face. You're human. You should be dead already, the lieutenant spat, reaching for his sidearm. Eli lunged, every movement fueled by the adaptation writhing in his cells. They crashed together, the room shaking as gravity surged. The lieutenant fired, but Eli knocked the weapon aside, feeling his own strength surge to near Liraean levels. The fight was brutal and close quarters, fists, elbows, a flurry of motion as the two grappled for dominance. The Liraean was heavier, but Eli was faster. He twisted free, slammed the lieutenant's arm against the console, and drove his fist into the armored jaw. The helmet cracked, the Liraean reeled. Eli pressed the advantage, using the gravity against his opponent, until the lieutenant collapsed, unconscious. Eli staggered to the console, fingers flying over the controls. He disengaged the security lock, overriding the local systems. The outer doors hissed open, and a moment later Sylvie and the other survivors rushed in, ducking behind barricades as plasma fire lit up the corridor outside. Sylvie raced to his side, relief shining in her eyes. You did it. He nodded, breath coming in hard bursts. Get your prototype online, we don't have much time. She slid into the chair, hands a blur as she configured the device. The prototype's core began to glow, drawing power from the auxiliary grid. Screens filled with cascading data, warnings flashing red and gold. Outside, the gravity amplifiers pulsed in erratic, dangerous sync. A comm signal burst through the static, Envoy Marcel's voice, urgent and clear. Sylvie, Eli, we have evidence. Your data is broadcasting planet-wide. The Separatists' sabotage is exposed. Reinforcements are coming, but gravity surges are spiking. You must hold the lab until we arrive. The building shook, panels rattling as the amplifiers outside neared resonance. Eli glanced at the survivors. 2 Liraeans, one clutching a makeshift weapon, the other wide-eyed but resolute. He moved quickly, helping them barricade the main entrance with overturned tables and heavy equipment. "Protect Sylvi in the console," Eli ordered, voice hard as stone. "Nothing else matters." The younger Liraean woman met his gaze, her admiration unguarded. "You have the heart of a Liraean, Eli Grant." He managed a tight smile, gripping the metal bar he'd found as a makeshift club. "Let's hope that's enough." Outside, the separatists regrouped. Drones whirred, amplifiers screamed. The doors rattled under the first assault, energy bolts slamming against the reinforced frame. Each impact sent a tremor through the floor, gravity swelling and receding in maddening waves. Eli planted his feet, ready to meet the charge. Sylvie worked furiously at the console, her hands steady even as the world seemed to fall apart around her. The prototype's field began to stabilize, the energy signature shifting. She glanced back at Eli, her voice strong despite the chaos. "Just a few more minutes." The doors shook again, hinges groaning as the separatists launched their final assault. Eli braced himself, every cell in his body burning with resolve and transformation. For a heartbeat, he met Sylvie's eyes, silver shining with hope, and the storm outside seemed almost bearable. Eli awakened to the hush of the medical suite, a cocoon of filtered light and gentle hums. The ceiling arched high, woven with living vines and fiber optic strands that pulsed with a serene blue-green glow. He blinked, breathing deeply, and felt the difference immediately. His body thrummed with a new strength, each muscle and bone resonating with the memory of Lirae's gravity and the echo of his own survival. He flexed his hand, marveling at the effortless power in his grip. Two medics hovered nearby, one Liraean, crystalline skin refracting the soft light, and one human, their coats marked with the insignia of the new Joint Medical Corps. The Liraean medic examined a display, her voice musical. "Adaptation is complete. His physiology is stable, extraordinary even for cross-species protocols." The human medic nodded, voice gentle. "Rest easy, Eli. You're among friends now." He managed a tired smile, glancing around the suite. The machines had faded into the background, replaced by the sight that mattered most: Sylvie. She stood at the foot of his bed, her silver eyes shimmering with emotion, her posture poised between relief and awe. She crossed to him, unable to hide the tremor in her hands. "I was afraid you wouldn't wake up. After the final surge, your readings were—" Her voice caught, and she pressed her palm to his cheek, cool and steady. "But you did. Of course you did." Eli reached up, brushing her fingers with his own, grounding himself in her touch. "Guess I'm too stubborn to quit. Besides, you still owe me a night under Lirae's stars." Her laughter was soft, but it sparkled in the quiet. "You remember?" "I remember everything," he replied, "especially you." Outside the suite, the world had changed. News of the separatist plot moved swiftly across the outpost and far beyond. Envoy Marcel, voice steely and clear, stood before cameras and delegates, the undeniable evidence streaming behind him: security feeds, communications intercepts, the schematics of the alien device. He spoke not as a desperate father, but as a statesman, his words broadcast in both human and Liraean dialects. "The catastrophe that befell Lirae was no accident," Marcel declared. "It was engineered by a faction seeking to keep our worlds apart, to feed on fear and isolation. But today, we choose unity over division." His speech rippled through the ranks of Liraeans and humans alike. The plotters were denounced, arrested, their cause unraveling beneath the weight of truth. The amplifiers were dismantled, their threat extinguished. Where suspicion had once ruled, hope now found fertile ground. Eli's transformation swept through the scientific community like wildfire. Specialists and scholars, human and Liraean, crowded the observation galleries, trading theories and marveling at the living proof before them. His body, once strictly human, was now something new. Denser bone, reinforced muscle, blood chemistry recalibrated for Lirae's gravity. It was adaptation on a scale no one had dared to imagine. "He is living evidence," one Liraean biologist announced, her crystalline fingers trembling with excitement, "of what we can accomplish together. If Eli Grant can cross the boundary of worlds, what else is possible?" The tension that had lingered for generations began to ease. In the great atrium, human and Lyrian delegates gathered. Old flags were lowered, new banners unfurled, interwoven symbols of both worlds. A joint council was formed, the treaty drafted and signed beneath the gaze of 1,000 witnesses. Eli and Sylvie stood at the center, living symbols of all that unity could achieve. For a time, the world seemed to slow. The air was filled not with alarms but with laughter and music, the soft murmur of languages blending, the promise of a shared future growing stronger with each passing hour. In the gentle hush of the recovery wing, Eli and Sylvie lingered, sheltered from the world's demands. She sat beside him, tracing the new lines of strength in his hand, her voice low and honest. "I thought I'd lost you," she admitted, brushing a lock of silvery hair behind her ear. "When the gravity field collapsed, and the alarms, everything, I was sure it was over. But now, after all we've survived, I think I finally believe in us, in what we could be." Eli smiled, tenderly tucking her hair behind her ear. "I never thought surviving Lirae would lead me here. I always imagined making it home. But now, maybe this is home. A future where we're stronger together. Where no one has to choose between worlds." She pressed her forehead to his, their breaths mingling, and they let themselves imagine the life that waited. Shared research, shared nights beneath the shimmering sky, the laughter of both species in the halls of a new era. Later, at the treaty celebration, the great outpost hall shone with banners and lanterns. Dignitaries from Earth and Lirae mingled. Music drifted through the air. Eli stood at the center of it all, his presence drawing eyes and smiles. When his name was called, the applause rose like a wave. Envoy Marcel stepped forward, offering a salute. "For bravery that crossed boundaries, for a heart that bridges worlds, Eli Grant, you are an honored citizen of both Lirae and Earth." Sylvie joined him on the dais, her hand in his, silver eyes shining with pride. The treaty was signed, new possibilities inked in the memory of all present. That night, as the celebrations faded to quiet laughter and the sky outside glimmered with the fractured auroras of Lirae's healing atmosphere, Eli and Sylvie slipped away. They stood together on a balcony overlooking the horizon, the world below transformed and whole. Sylvie leaned into his side, her head resting against his shoulder. "The crisis is over, Eli, but our journey isn't. There's so much we could build. New labs, new ways to live, together." He wrapped his arm around her, drawing her close. "We'll build it all. A life that bridges both our worlds. I never imagined I'd be part of something this big, or that I'd find you along the way." She smiled, hope shining through her exhaustion. "Promise me we'll never stop discovering." He turned, brushing his lips against her hair. "I promise, as long as there's gravity, as long as there's us." Beneath the shimmering sky, forever changed by catastrophe and now by hope, Eli and Sylvie shared a lingering kiss. In that embrace was a promise of discovery, of unity, of love strong enough to defy the pull of any world. Together, they faced the horizon, ready to shape a future where adaptation and courage would carry both their peoples into a new age. That's the end of the story. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and write in the comments what you liked most about this story. Our team will be very grateful to you. You can find even more fascinating stories on our channel. See you in the next video.